All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to South Coast AQMD. My name is Fabian Wesson, Assistant Deputy Executive Officer for Legislative Public Affairs and Media. I am thrilled to be here today and to welcome you, and more than thrilled to welcome and introduce the new chair of the Environmental Justice Advisory Group, Senator Vanessa Delgado, who will now be your chair, will be your leader, and I will not have to do these meetings anymore. Yay! Thank you so much, Senator. It's yours.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. So this is the first meeting that I'm chairing. I wanted to share a little bit about myself, just so we become fast friends. So I just joined the board in May. I'm the Senate appointee. I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I grew up in Boyle Heights, and I have my career is in real estate development. I built affordable housing. I was the mayor of the city of Montebello. And then I had this very strange experience running for Senate. I won a short-term race that you can Google and see. Apparently, it'll never happen again in California history. But I served for 5 months in 2018. And I am just really humbled to be able to serve on the AQMD. My office is in Commerce, and I feel like there needs to be somebody on the AQMD who sees the issues that are pertinent to underserved communities on a regular basis. And so I'm proud to serve and really excited about this group in particular. I feel like I have a lot to learn from you all about the issues and what is important to you. And I really believe that my role is to execute what you believe is important. So I'm here to listen and to learn, and I ask for your patience as I get up to speed. I haven't chaired a meeting since I was mayor, so I'm going to look to the ladies here to help guide today, and hopefully this will go smoothly. But I'd love to hear from you if we can go through and just, I'll actually call the meeting to order so we can start that process.
My name is Danny Morales, represent the National Alliance for Human Rights, and I've been on the Environmental Justice Advisory Committee since it started, and I think we've accomplished a lot. We bring a lot of issues that are inherent to our own communities, especially I live in Riverside, and some of the other members we're concerned about the issues in Riverside and San Bernardino. So we look forward to working with you and welcome.
So my name is Rafael Yanis. I'm a community member of the East LA Boyle Heights area, and I joined this group some years ago, originally fighting for the communities in Boyle Heights on the Exide battery issue, and then from there I was invited to sit in this group, and just have been participating and really bringing awareness to some of the issues that plague the East LA and Boyle Heights area. I am an engineer as well. I'm an environmental engineer, and I work for the city of Los Angeles. But I offer my expertise, of course, to the community, and just making sure that we all understand as a community what the AQMD is doing, and then understanding what's being reported to the community, because a lot of times it goes over many people's heads. And so when the community, has certain concerns and are really not understanding what's being done, I try to offer some advice, or rather explanation in more layman's terms.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Monique Hernandez, and I joined EJAG a couple years ago. My day job is working for a central cancer registry, actually for Florida. I work in public health and work remotely from California. But I also teach at Cal State LA in the geography department, and the courses I teach are in urban pollution. And so this is what connected me with the AQMD. I had the AQMD come in and speak to my class, and we developed a close relationship. And since then, have been participating on EJAG, and AQMD has done an amazing job with engaging students at Cal State LA by way of EJ tours, bus tours through communities. Last year we did a port tour, and just to get them more aware of how to make change, because they live in these communities that are heavily affected. So my role here is really more connected through the university and for the students. And I'm very happy to be here and happy to meet you, and welcome.
Thank you.
My name is Retta Alexander, and I've been on the Environmental Justice Committee for many years. I just can't remember how long, but it's been a while. I have worked, I'm retired now, but with organizations serving seniors primarily in the San Fernando Valley, and work with their Social Justice Committee, and which is also engaged in environmental justice activities. I guess I'm also interested in your concerns and interest in environmental injustice, I guess, would be more accurate, and how you think you as a board member can encourage us, enable us, and support us in your new role. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Mary Figueroa, and I, like Danny Morales, we're from the Inland Empire. So I live in Riverside. Our challenge, and I mean, and this is not negative, but our challenge on this particular board is to ensure that the voice from the Inland Empire is heard. It's a challenge because it's really hard for us to compete with the Los Angeles area with its already established outreach. A lot of our communities do not even really understand about the AQMD and what it could do for them. One of the particular areas that I know of is a concern for me is the Moreno Valley World Logistics Center. I know that there was a recent article about Carb and the current litigation that they're involved in with it. So it gives us some hope that there are some entities out there that are still hearing the voice of the community. So that is where we're coming from. I have been involved in the community since I was 16, but I currently sit on the Riverside Community College District Board of Trustees. So I represent that area in that aspect. But I represent most of the areas in the community. And a lot of the decisions, unfortunately, that are made at the local level from some of our city councils and some of our school boards impact heavily on a negative basis to the communities of color. They don't put the schools in our location, or if they do, the schools are right next to a freeway or a railroad track. And it's okay because the unfortunate reality is it's a community of color, and they don't always stand up and have their voices heard. So that's our challenge, and I know that there's one other individual here who also happens to be from an even more isolated area down towards the Mecca and Salton Sea area. I know he'll speak also later, but welcome, thank you. We look forward to working with you.
Hello, welcome. I'm Suzanne Bilodeau, and I am appointee of Orange County, and my background is environmental health, and I've been on the board from quite some time.
Thank you.
Paul Cho from Dry Cleaners Association. And I've been with the association for 25 years, and this group since day one. So welcome.
Thank you.
There it is. I don't know if you really want to hear from me. I'd really, it's probably not very important what I have to say. But I do say that we're not really isolated. We get all these people from Washington and the state and county and everywhere coming in to tell us what our problems are. We never get a chance to really sit down and express what we see as our issues. So being in this committee gives me a chance to once in a while say some of the things that do concern our citizens. I was appointed by Supervisor Benoit to represent our area once we were included. For many years, we were not included, but we were still working on the issues of air quality and other environmental concerns. And when Supervisor Perez came on board, he also reappointed me, I guess, mainly because I was his teacher in elementary school. So, and I was also his baseball coach. So, I guess, and most of then Congressman Raul Reese was also my student. I was his computer teacher, and Mr. Edward Garcia, who is the assemblyman, was also in my 6th grade class. So, matter of fact, I don't even know why they decided to appoint me either to some of the other committees. But anyway, I'm here, and I'm willing to share some concerns and some ideas. And we have a problem in the Coachella Valley, and we're at the edge where it can either be solved or it will become just another LA. But again, the problem is we need to listen to the people, what their concerns are, and start working from there. And you don't have to come in with great big projects. All you have to do is start building blocks and building until you get the building put up. But anyway, my name is Manuel Arredondo, and I'm representing the Eastern Coachella Valley.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Humberto Lugo, and I also represent the Eastern Coachella Valley around air quality, environmental justice issues. And just as my colleague here, Mary, mentioned, a lot of the transportation and the impacts of the basin, of the South Coast Air Basin, from Moreno Valley, Los Angeles, impacts the Coachella Valley. We have multiple sources of pollution there. It's not just the Salton Sea. I know everybody thinks it's just the Salton Sea, and it's always the Salton Sea, but there's much more than just that. We have an incinerator in that community. We have transportation. We have agricultural pesticides happening there. We have illegal dumping, illegal fires happening all the time. That incident that happened a few months ago, it's not an isolated issue. It happens often, whether it's through those illegal dumping or through in tribal land. So there's a lot of history in the Coachella Valley of environmental justice issues. And most of all, I want to appreciate, and say thank you for being here. And this is a good place for us to voice our concerns of what's going on in the Coachella Valley, and not just necessarily there, but the whole basin, because we all breathe the same air. It doesn't matter if we're in Coachella, we're in Los Angeles, we're being impacted at the same time. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jill Johnston. I'm Assistant Professor of Preventive Medicine at the University of Southern California. And I have the opportunity to work a lot with frontline communities facing industrial contamination and impacts by goods movement, and trying to characterize what potential air pollution could be and health effects, and then think through what sort of regulatory or solution-oriented policies we can put in place to reduce exposure and protect public health. So, thanks.
Thank
Nancy Feldman, Counsel's Office.
Hi, Jeanette Short, AQMD.
Alicia Rodriguez, Legislative Public Affairs and Media.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for introducing yourselves. Do you want to tell us at least your roles?
Denitra Brown, Career Development Intern.
Brandy?
We have one more member that just...
Okay. Giving him time.
Brandy Keith, Secretary.
Thank you. And we've got one more member. We're just introducing. This is my first meeting, so I just wanted to get a sense of who's on the committee and just hear your story.
Donald Smith, City of Compton.
All right, well, welcome. Okay, so we've called the meeting to order, and we have the minutes to approve of October 25th. Are there any changes, issues, comments to the minutes? Is there a motion to approve? So moved. Do we have a second? Second. Any opposition? All right, so that is approved. And then we've got the review of follow-up action items by Ms. Fabian Wesson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In your packet, there should be a review of the action items. If not, I do have them, the action items from October the 25th, 2019 meeting. There was an email at the advisory group the link to Estamos Aquí, a community documentary that was shown during our environmental justice conference. It's a 2-minute trailer that was emailed on October the 25th. Item was to share with EJAC member conference breakout session notes. It's available as a handout today. Please make certain that everyone gets it just in case, okay? And then agendized community science overview. A brief overview will be provided today by committee member Rafael Yanis. Thank you, Rafael. And is there no motion required? As there is no motion required on that, we'll move on to item number 4, which is goals and objectives for 2020. You all should have that. That's attachment number 2 in your packet. Are there any comments, additions to the goals and objectives 2020?
Did we have one from a board member?
Yes, I was waiting for them. Yes, we do have, and you know what? We are so sorry. We neglected to also welcome governing board member Supervisor Janice Rutherford. She's also been appointed to this board. She just had a conflict today and could not make it, but already she's on, off, and running, and she's submitted 2 suggested amendments to the advisory group goals and objectives. There are items number 13, updates on implementation of the 2016 AQMD, and number 14, which would be an update on the development of the 2022 AQMD. So having said that, we will need a motion to adopt the goals and objectives, and the motion should include as amended, because we have added 2 goals since the last meeting. Is there a second? Any discussion?
I wanted to, on the number 8, we're always talking about emerging technologies, but even at the meeting this last week that took place in Coachella, the issue again of monitoring and monitors. I know we developed a monitor which is very inexpensive, relatively speaking, and I'm wondering if maybe not just talking about emerging, but rather implementing the ones we already have in some of the homes and areas that, especially where there is concern about the air quality.
I'm writing. Implementing existing technology. Does that sum it up? Implementing existing technology?
That's right.
Is the group okay with that? Okay, so the motion, do we have to remake that motion, Nancy? Okay. Okay, so, okay, sure.
Thank you. So, I know in number 9, it states that 2016 air quality, the Carb mobile source strategies. One of the things I guess I wanted to somehow bring in, and it could be under AB 617, item as well would be the Carb mobile platform for air quality monitoring and all other stuff. I know that we talked about it in the AB 617 meetings, and it'll come up again in the subsequent the AB 617 meeting for the new community in the what's that community called? Southeast, the Southeast LA area. The need for that type of technology that Carb currently uses and stuff. While it's kind of mentioned briefly in the camp for the East LA Boyle Heights area, I think we as a group, we had a previous presentation that Carb did on it, but it's I want to move it forward in terms of how it could be implemented within the community itself. I know it was mentioned again in the camp, but I think this year we should move forward in actually bringing that technology into the communities and into the more of an actionable type of event rather than just talking about it. I think we can get a lot of movement towards actually cleaning up the air and around the communities and whatnot because of the mobile source emissions that are plaguing not only the East LA Boyle Heights area, but also the Southeast Los Angeles area as well.
So help me out frame that. And thank you, Nancy.
Actually, I think that fits nicely with the amendment that was just made because that is existing technology.
Thank you.
So I don't think we need a new motion.
Right. Well,
or a further amendment. It's a refinement of the broad category, so it fits under there. So as long as we have it listed as a goal and objective as it comes up for discussion in future meetings, it's perfectly appropriate.
So then he can refine it then.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Yeah, because it was discussed as a, I think they called it just a prototype. Which,
so you don't think, well, either it's going to fit under existing technologies or number 8, emerging technologies.
Okay, well, I'm hoping
I don't think you need a separate item for it.
Yeah, because it's been out for a couple of years now,
Yeah, so it's one or the other.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Council. We appreciate you. So we'll have to have a new motion for that to include the number 15. So the motion would be as further amended, correct?
Well,
Or no, not a new motion, just restating the motion. So the motion has to be restated. We need a motion to approve the Environmental Justice Advisory Group 2020 Goals and Objectives as further amended. Do I have a motion? And a second. Okay, as we've had discussion on that, all in favor? Motion passes. Thank you, thank you. Senator, I think you have a wide range of talent around this table, resources that I call on you to tap on. Because of Riverside's request for a little bit more attention out there, we're looking for venues to host our 2020 Environmental Justice Conference out there. We'd love to have it in Riverside. We utilized this past year buses from one of the council members, so we know that we can move people to locations to get them there. So Mary and Daniel, thank you so much for insisting on that. I believe the next item is EJEG Accomplishments 2019.
Yes.
And here we go. There's no motion required on that. Were there any comments? Did everyone receive these beforehand? Okay, so you've already read, and so if there's no comments, then I'm sorry, it's back to you, Madam Chair.
Yes. So there's no motion required on this, so we'll accept that and move forward to item number 6, the Environmental Justice Community Partnership Recap of 2019. And this is Alicia Rodriguez.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Today, I will be providing a program recap to sum up what we worked on, accomplished in 2019. And I'll be taking questions at the end if you have questions for 2020. So before I get started, I want to provide somewhat of an overview of how the Environmental Justice Community Partnership came to be. So it was adopted in 2015, and with a goal of having programs to reach out to community members, build relationships, build collaboration with the community. So overall, our program focus and mission is really to build relationships, to educate students on air pollution, and like Dr. Monique Hernandez mentioned, we also go out and give presentations to students and so forth. So overall for 2019, and I'll be going into each of these bullet points more in depth, we did conduct 4 advisory council meetings, 4 interagency task force meetings, 5 cleaner ranger education presentations, and that was a pilot program, and we conducted the 5th annual Environmental Justice Conference. I won't be going too much in depth on that item since at the last meeting I did present on it, and also the Environmental Justice Student Bus Tour. Again, that doesn't capture our overall engagement within the community and all of the times that we went out to give presentations, all the times we went out to community meetings, or also attended, AB 617 meetings and so forth. So for the Environmental Justice Community Partnership Advisory Council, we hosted 4 quarterly meetings, such as this one. But the distinction between the two is that for the Advisory Council, we really try to choose a lot of people within the 4 counties that are involved with environmental justice issues and nonprofits and in academia. And so for that advisory council, they really help advise staff, such as myself, that's working on the Environmental Justice Community Partnership, to give suggestions on like venues, speakers, schools to attend, or even topics for future meetings, or to brief other community members what they're working on. So it really builds collaboration among the group as well. For the interagency task force, we held 4 meetings, and the task force was really adopted and created that year. So that was the first year that we had the interagency task force. And just some more background, it stemmed out of 2017 and 2018 environmental justice summits that were hosted by South Coast AQMD with other environmental agencies to really collaborate on environmental complaints and just collaborate as agencies, for example, in taking calls and reports, or going out to the community and just working together to get that resolved more efficiently. So what we did notice is that each year, 1 meeting just wasn't enough. And so this was really at the request of not just environmental agencies, my apologies, but also environmental justice organizations, stakeholders that were there. So it was really working with agencies and also working with community stakeholders. And so we've been working on that for the past year, and we adopted right now. Well, moving forward, we're moving on implementing an environmental agency staff training, and that's really to collaborate and create open communication between agencies and training on interagency protocols. So what we found is a lot of staff members that take calls aren't really briefed on what other agencies do. And so sometimes, a lot of the community members may call and have, a complaint on water issues or mold, for example. And so it's really to bring everyone to the table and just talk about these things and really educate one another. So hopefully we'll implement that. April or May is our target. So we're working on that right now. We've also drafted a public interagency referral directory with agency contacts throughout LA County. And we're hoping to roll that out this year. And so we're working with the task force to come out with an outreach strategy on how we're going to go about distributing this document. And also posting it online. And, there's other things that we have to think about, like who's going to update it, how are we going to maintain it? And, there's also a lot of cities that aren't listed on the document. So we really only capture the county. And so there's a lot of things that we're working out. And then also we created an internal agency staff directory. We haven't created it, but we do have a list from Cali, PA on contacts that agencies can use internally to communicate better. And so we're really working with Cali, PA on how that would work and how it would be updated and the same types of issues for that. So we're currently working on that. It's going well. I know that Rafael has been involved in attending the meetings as well. So thank you for that. Next, I'm going to move on to the Clean Air Ranger Education Program. This actually ended up becoming, or quickly turned into, one of my favorite programs that I get the privilege of working on. So this program was created with the intention of going to elementary schools and educating students on the basics of air pollution and what it is. It's giving them an introduction. And most of these schools are in environmental justice communities. And so I remember the first time we went to a school, the first school was in Pico Rivera, and we asked students, raise your hand if you know someone or you have asthma. And I think Fabian can attest to this, but I think every student raised their hand. So that kind of tells you something, or maybe like 85% of the students raised their hand, but it was a lot of students. And so there are studies that show that reaching the children is a great pathway to also reaching families and other siblings and family members because they do go home and share the information. So it's been really a great privilege to go to schools and be able to meet with the students. You can see, they're all raising their hand, but they're all really engaged. And it's also a learning process for us as well in terms of, what words can we use and how do we really break this down in a way that they will understand. So we continue working on that, and then as we go to different schools, we present to different grade levels. So our presentation changes slightly. So these were the 5 schools that we went to in 2019. And for 2020, we really are working on really making this more, when we go to the schools, providing as much resources as we can. So we're working on creating, draft lesson plans for the teachers on air pollution topics, what to do, what kinds of activities can you do if it's a bad air quality day. Just breaking down, if we leave air quality flags, how to do that. We leave instructions and so forth. So there's a lot that goes into it, and we're currently working on a logo and a mascot and really making it kid-friendly. And so we also, of course, gave surveys to the teachers that attended each presentation. And so here's kind of a breakdown, and really the feedback is all good. So they either agree or strongly disagree. But we do make it a point to speak to the teachers afterwards and really get feedback on what we can do better. For example, our first presentation was really long, so then we cut it back. So we're learning, as we go. And again, we did host the Environmental Justice Conference. I know Senator Delgado was there, so thank you for that. I did already present on it, so I'm just going to move forward a little bit. And also we hosted the 2019 Environmental Justice Student Bus Tour, as Dr. Hernandez mentioned earlier. We did partner with Cal State LA, and we also essentially partnered with the Port of LA because they didn't charge us to go on. They chartered a boat and they took us out, and we were able to look at the ports. And also a lot of the students that were involved were really interested. I mean, they were taking urban pollution, or they were majoring in something close to it. So it really did make an impact, hopefully, in their future careers. And as always, we always encourage everyone to download the app. So any questions? Yes.
A really simple question. On the Ranger program.
Yes.
What kind of what kind of information is provided to the students to take home?
Great
Like
question.
what kind of documents and stuff are they taking with them back home?
Great question. So for 2019, what every student that attended the assembly, they did go home with a backpack, like a drawstring backpack. And inside that backpack was a folder for their parents. And so we had as much printed pamphlets that we have, like on the lawnmower exchange program, on the clean air furnace program, if it related to the area. So anything that we could find from the district, any programs, of course, our flyer to download the app was included in there. And also a letter to the parents was also in there, just letting them know, oh, we went to your school, we spoke to your child about these topics. And, you know, they had our website, and there was also goodies for the children. So they got a reusable water bottle, and, you know, little goodies, a wristband bracelet, branded bracelet, and so forth. So they got some goodies, the parents got goodies. But as I mentioned, we learned a lot this year, and I think there's a lot more that we can do. So we're working to include more information, like activities to do with their children and so forth. So we're hoping to provide even more information, and that's what we're working on these upcoming months.
So were any of the documents in Spanish?
Yes, everything
All
was
were
in
in
Spanish
Spanish.
and English. Yes.
All were in Spanish, and certainly open to any suggestions for the toolkit. We're expanding that for the parents and children. Open to any suggestions for schools you might want us to come into. Of course, that's not really now a problem, but certainly if you have some in particular, we'd be open to that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I have a question. Do you have your 2020 dates yet for these things? So if anybody wants to participate or assist, are those available yet?
So for the CARE program, for the clean air?
I think they
or-
all had multiple dates,
Okay,
right? So-
some of them do and some of them don't. So interagency, we have all the dates, we can share those. EJ conference, I think we're still solidifying a date, but as they come, I think it's a good idea. I can share that with everyone. And also, actually, I did forget to mention that we will be presenting at Whitaker Elementary School in Buena Park on February 6th. It's not our completely revamped program because we're working on all those items, but it's still, it's going to be for 5th and 6th graders. So we're excited. We haven't presented to 6th graders yet, so we'll see how our script goes with them. But yeah.
And
I'd
school
love to
flags?
attend.
Okay.
And school flags?
Yes, and so another thing, as I mentioned, we do have the air quality flags. And essentially what we ask is that whoever's putting up the flag, check the app daily, and maybe even twice a day we encourage them to check the app so that they know what the air quality is. So part of our information that's going home to the parents is, what does that mean? 'Cause I know a lot of schools get that question. So we're preparing all those documents. And also, one thing I didn't mention about the Clean Air Ranger Education Program is that we also make an effort if the principal allows, but most principals are really excited that we're going. We stay during the lunch recess, so usually we're able to present to about 2 grade levels at a time, so we only do 2 grade levels, but we stay during recess and we play, kid bop music, and we give out, goodies, rulers, for example, recycled rulers, and we show the kids a clean air vehicle, an electric vehicle. A lot of them are like, wow, this doesn't use gas, what? And so they've never seen that, and so it's really exciting.
Any other questions?
I can see why you're really excited about that program. I'm so glad that you're targeting the children, and particularly in environmental justice communities. But it would be great if we can grow that somehow to many, many more schools in the expanded community as well. I wanted to know, did they have a chance, the children, to ask questions? And can you give an idea of the sort of questions they raised?
Sorry. So yes, we do provide an opportunity for the children to ask questions, usually towards the beginning and at the end. And some questions don't make quite sense, but others do. And so some of the questions are like, how do you know if it's a bad air quality day? What do you do if there's smoke outside? And a lot of their questions also do relate to some indoor air quality questions that they have about cooking and things like that. But mostly I think a lot of the schools at the time were going through wildfires, so they were asking us about that. And also just, I think a lot of it was fire. I think they were concerned about smoke and fire. So that's mostly what they've asked. I don't know can you think of any other type of
Just
questions?
what can they do? That's really, the simple question, what can we do to help clean the air? But, this program is second, third grade level. We're expanding it, but we're also in the high schools with our WHAM, Why Healthy Air Matters program. And that's become quite extensive, and there's opportunities there to volunteer and be involved. So that contact person is Monica Kim, and we'll make certain that you get some information about that also. That's been very popular. In fact, I was supposed to teach my first course today, but I had to reschedule this meeting, San Bernardino last night, Coachella the night before. Only so much this old body can give. So we rescheduled. I'm looking forward to it. It's very exciting. So we're coming at both ends, and eventually our program will extend into the high school program. So there's a continuum of education in the schools with the goal and desire to continue that at home, because we know for a lot of parents in our EJ communities, the kids are the point of contact for and information for a lot. So yes, so any input you all have, we'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, and just to add one more thing, the kids do ask a lot about us personally.
Oh, yes.
So they want to know about
Yes,
us.
yes.
So we do share our background.
Yes, so
where
we
went
make
to
certain
school and all
that audience is quite diverse. We've got an engineer, African-American female engineer that goes, and we just cover that so that they can see what they can be. They can see what's possible and who's delivering that, because, of course, we're trying to get folk to come out here and work, too, and get into these kinds of fields and get interested in environmental careers. Oh, I'm sorry.
Alicia, I was wondering, in the school that you mentioned, that all the kids raised their hands when you asked them who had asthma. Do you by any chance know of the environment around there? Are there a lot of diesel trucks around there? Or because the research says that where there's diesel trucks around the neighborhood, they claim half of them contract asthma. So I was wondering if you had any idea of what the surrounding area is that may cause the asthma.
Yeah, great question. Well, Pico Rivera, I know the 605 goes by there. They're close to the 5, and then it's not too far from City of Industry. So I know that there's a lot of goods movement in the area. So most likely I would say that there is some diesel trucks, but I wouldn't say that they necessarily go through their neighborhoods as much. It's more, there's pockets of like residential areas in that city. But I know that they're not too far. Some of the kids could possibly live near a freeway.
And I'd also recommend you visit Wilson Elementary School in South Colton, because that's a big problem there.
Can you add me on the list or send me the information for the Buena Park Elementary School, Whitaker, the time and date and that? Thank you.
We'll send that to everyone in an email.
Great.
But if you are planning on attending, please let me know ahead of time, because I have to let you know what you need to do, and I have to ask the principal and all that.
Good. Comment here.
My question was answered by Ms. Wesson about the high school participation, but I also just wanted to commend you on your efforts to get involved with that, and that seems like a very important activity to get the kids involved at an early age, because they usually last, and they also influence their parents and friends, so I think that's a great avenue.
I think we still have another card.
Thank you. So quick question, how were the sites that are listed selected? Was it based on the surrounding community and maybe some of the impact that it has, or was
I
it
think
just?
one of the first schools, your brother was the principal, or, I mean, we used seriously, we used
Okay.
contacts, we used what we had at the moment to get in, to get it started, to get the pilot started, to get, yeah. So it hasn't been a science of how we
Right.
do it, and certainly wanting to keep it into environmental justice communities, and also AB 617 communities, which of course we know tend to be environmental justice communities. But that was the desire. I'm sorry, Alicia, I didn't mean to cut in, but go ahead. I didn't know if you would tell that about your brother-in-law.
Yeah, it actually says Valencia, but it was Pico Rivera. So yeah, at first I was like, well, we're gonna go to a school, we're gonna test out the script and everything. I wanted to go to a school where we're gonna, essentially burn bridges, but it went really, really well. And the kids really liked it. I think we were more nervous than they were at the first school. So we quickly learned, and the rest of the schools, we either had a connection or we just reached 20th Street, we just reached out. Cesar Chavez, they were concerned with some wildfires in the area, so we went to that school. We made a connection with the teacher. So it's really, we're creating a list. Like I know for San Bernardino, we have a list of schools that want us to go there. We can only go to so many, but we do have a list. And if you do want us to go, for example, I already noted Wilson Elementary School, let us know so we can put that down. But we really try to go to the schools. I think if I have a list, I'd go to the school that's in the most impacted community.
And before we move on, if I could just emphasize what Alicia was saying about letting her know, if you plan on attending one of these programs, each school district has pretty rigorous requirements, as they should, for who is allowed on campus. And our staff who is participating in these programs go through a background check so that we can assure the schools that there's nothing nefarious in their backgrounds. And so don't just attend, even if you think, well, I'll just watch, I'll be in the back of the room. We really need to know if you're going to be there.
Do we still have a comment there? Are you? No. Go ahead.
Yes. You also, on the CARE presentations, mentioned that you leave lesson plans with teachers. And is that, can you say a little more about that? Is that something they can continue to use in the course of their program?
Yes. So the lesson plans we're actually rolling out in 2020 because of some of the feedback that we received. So we're currently working on that. We have them drafted, but we're trying to create, what we're actually trying to do is create a handbook that we can leave at the school. So the handbook would explain what the different what the air quality is and how to know what it is. Activities that the school can do with the kids on bad air quality days, lesson plans for the teachers, and then we would also leave the teachers with information on our programs at our agency, our contact information, and also activities to do at home for the parents so that they're aware of that.
Resources given, eventually the desire would be to leave the schools starting an environmental justice club, focusing on everything, and then we would still be attached to that club as mentors or what have you, however we could help them. That way the interest continues, the focus continues, the commitment continues with the kids. We're so excited about this program. The possibilities just keep growing, leaving a calendar with the teachers of days, with activities that they can plan to do. Earth Day, it's unlimited. It's because they're kids and they're our future. It's unlimited.
Yeah, and then also just since you mentioned the thing about the clubs, when we went to North Vertimont Elementary School, they already are more environmentally focused, and the teacher there was really excited that they created a Clean Air Patrol Club, I believe that's their name, CAP program. So next Friday, I'll be at the CAP program. So we really do want to maintain our relationships that we build and continue to be engaged. And we know all schools can't create a club, but we give them certain activities that they could do if they are interested.
I think we had a comment. Are you?
Just let me quickly finish. Are the words climate change and global warming linked to the presentation at all?
Currently, no, but we do say things that they can do, and we do explain what air pollution is. We'd have to really look at it and see how much they can take in, depending on the grade level.
I personally think it's important to connect those dots and to use those phrases so that they see that there is a connection. So I would suggest.
Thank you. That's the kind of input we're looking for. Thanks, Retta.
We did have a comment from the public.
Yeah, I'm Harvey with the Public Solar Power Coalition. In reference to these numbers at the schools of kids that got asthma, I know one woman that's an activist that isn't a child anymore. I know people that've been in and out of the hospital. There are costs, real costs. They say when somebody dies, the social cost is $9 million per premature death. Okay, and that shared is a societal cost. These are what they call externalities to our fossil fuel production industrial system that we had 200-300 years. Legal concept, if you break it, you pay for it. They're on their way out. We've got to set up funds, including a health benefit fund. Whatever they're paying out of pocket, these kids and their families has to be reimbursed. This is more in general for the transition, and environmental justice, social transition, for the solar transition. So it's imperative that we take this overview and set the seeds of this right now. I brought this up at various committee meetings this morning, and I've been talking about it for a long time, but there is out-of-pocket costs, and then there's whatever the state's paying. There are other things that happen. When they don't go to school, the state doesn't pay them the school for their attendance. Okay? This is complicated. It's got to be dealt with and be dealt with now. We can't wait.
Thank you, Harvey. You're right. This is a critical issue. I hear everybody's excitement, and I told you earlier that my role is to carry forward what you all like and want to see done. So if it's okay legally, I would like to work with staff to see how we can get some grant funding to expand your program. And I think I think people like Altamed, Kaiser, they all, since I do affordable housing, I know they all contribute to those kinds of efforts. And I know if we focused on 617 communities and found a nexus between health benefits, we can get some money for this. And I'd ask your support to come pitch this with me. And if you just tell me what you can realistically, how many schools you can realistically do, if you need a staff person, what that means to you and your timeline. Maybe it's going to take us to 2021 to do that, but I'd like to help expand this program. Okay, let's, I'm sorry, Humberto.
Yeah, so I just have a comment or a question. What is the age group that you're, what is the age range right now? Is it just elementary or?
So right now it's just elementary, usually first grade through sixth grade.
Okay.
So all of the schools that we've gone to, we've targeted different grade levels, and we're comfortable so far presenting at every grade level. So we leave it up to the school, really, where they think we could best reach the students.
So the only thought I had was also including it into maybe the STEM programs in schools. And maybe, since it's AB 617 focused, maybe you can do some of the AB 617 communities where you also engage the kids in doing monitoring, maybe personal monitoring with, you can buy a set of monitors, and through grant funding and, use those at the community, do some mapping activities with them. That'll be really engage them further into the process, and it aligns well with stuff that's already happening.
Excellent. So perhaps at the next meeting, we can take this up again and figure out some action steps. I took to heart your comment about deliverables, and I'm a very type A personality. I like to set out goals and actually accomplish them, but that requires step by step, right? So at the next meeting, we'll talk about what you recommend on how we can expand the program. Rafael?
So another, Humberto brought a great point in terms of when we do go out to some of these schools, and some of the tasks that you leave with the school, perhaps what we can do is maybe partner with the school and leave one of these purple air monitors or something like that. And that would be a great tool for the school to go ahead and because this will like lend into my whole community scientists type of action. if it's possible, with funding.
They do work with monitors in the WAM program, in the high school program. These are all wonderful ideas. Keep them coming, because we literally just started this in 2019 with, I have an idea. Let's see where we can go with this. And we just, and two of us to begin with, now three of us. And Denitra, so, it's resource, it is resources. We could be in a school, several schools every day. Because whenever I talk about this program, I want you to come to my school. I want you to come. I've gotten so I don't talk about it in certain areas, academia, because we just can't be there. But it validates the need for the knowledge at that level and getting them already thinking about it by the time they're in high school. The WAM program is a continuation of what we started at the elementary level, and they're familiar and they're knowledgeable and they're already wanting to be environmental scientists or whatever it'll be by the time they're at that age. Yeah, it's exciting. It is.
I think with one of these purple air monitors, it gives them something to say, ooh, look, this is actually happening now.
Yeah.
Or when they have a bad air quality day, they say, oh, let's go and look up, what our air monitor is saying now.
Right.
And then they start looking at trends and the history and all that other stuff, and then these are teachable moments.
Excellent. We do have one more presentation, so Humberto will be the last
So I
comment.
just wanted to add, that I want to acknowledge that there's a lot of wealth of knowledge in this advisory group. I built the largest air monitoring network on the ground with community members. Working with the schools directly, and I know how hard. Sometimes it can be difficult to engage the principal or the superintendent or the board member. So it takes a lot of work. It's not just going to the school, hey, we want to talk to you about air quality, or put a monitor here, or put a flag program in your school. Sometimes you talk to the principal. If it's over the summer, you got to wait till next season. Then they tell you, well, we're waiting on a new superintendent. So there's a lot of steps that happen along the way. It's not just saying we're going to do this at the school. So I want to acknowledge all the wealth of knowledge here. We have scientists, we have Dr. Johnston, who's also involved in a lot of these these mapping activities with in schools in the basin. So I just, I think, this is something good, and I would like to see it continue and further, be implemented. And maybe we can start, like you said, Vanessa, in the 617 communities, and it'll align well with the priorities of 617, and saying, we're doing monitoring, but we're already doing that step ahead of what the community is going to recommend, because a lot of them are going to recommend more monitoring, and this will align with it as well.
We're going to do it.
Okay.
I'm excited. All right, let's move on to the community science overview. Rafael, if you could lead us into that.
Thank you. So I was asked to speak on this community science, and so I ended up doing an internet search, trying to figure out a good definition for community science, and I did find one. Public Lab, which there was an organization called Public Lab, and they defined it as community science as a collaboratively led scientific investigation, exploration, and engagement in the entirety of the scientific process. And I thought that kind of best suited the definition of what I felt that community science was. And this was, a definition that I had obtained from the Urban Ecology Center's website from an article published by, or entitled, Community Science, and it was written by Tim Vargo on May 17th, 2017. Just wanted to give that footnote credit. So I started thinking about what community science is and what it means to me. And the first thing that I think any type of science requires a lot of investment in the process, which of course requires time, patience, and sometimes frustration. And so community science in general, you have to really understand what's being discussed, right? You have to really understand the issues, or learn to understand a lot of times, because there's a learning curve. And so we try to learn what's being discussed so that we can become more engaged. So it started. I started asking questions to myself, and like, what can we do to help the situation if we don't understand? And that's to ask the questions. As science, in science, we always are asking questions. We always are trying to investigate and seek clarification. And so, like any good scientist, we ask the question of who, what, why, when, where, and how. Those are the, like we learned in elementary or, grade school. We had current events. I don't know if they have current events now. Does anybody know? Anyways, back in the day, we used to have to write current events and all that stuff, and so we had to answer these kind of questions, and that was our first introduction, really, into science, right? These current events that kids used to have to go and look at a newspaper article and stuff, and write down the who, what, why, when, and where, how. And so, in community science, and as a community scientist, we have to ask the who is being affected or studied, right? And so we have to understand what people, what communities are the most at risk. And so that's a part of the community science that we, as in the air quality, community, engage in. And so next is the what. What kinds of studies are being done? We have to define what purpose or the goals, understanding a bigger picture. And then the when. When are the studies being conducted and over what time frame? Yeah, a lot of times we have to set timelines so that way we understand, certain goals. So like, for instance, when air quality is being studied, it's over a long period of time, and a lot of the actions that we ultimately are looking for, they don't come very quickly, and that's where the frustration really comes into play, because a lot of these studies take a very, very long period of time. As like, for instance, in the AB 617, here we are 5 to 10 years out before really, there's firm action being taken. I'm hoping not, but that's the reality of studies and of science. Science takes time. The next is the where. Where are the studies being done? And are they being done in the right locations? A lot of times we have to ask ourselves, okay, here we have a community, we know that, community is being negatively impacted, but is it truly where while it's a community and where the impacts are being felt, is the root cause of the problem? A lot of times it's the neighboring community that's affecting other communities. And so the where becomes very important, because if we're not studying exactly where the source of the issue is, maybe we can't because of legal reasons or whatever, it becomes a problem and a source of frustration, continued frustration. Why? Why are the studies being done, and are they the right studies to address the issues at hand? Those are the type of questions that we have to ask. Are we benefiting the entire community and getting everyone involved in the process? The next is the how. How will the studies be done? Are they conducted in a way that makes sense, not only practically, but scientifically? And then, what can we do to educate ourselves as community scientists? The emphasis that I would have is not to recreate the wheel, because many times we undertake a lot of studies and whatnot that seem like it just reinvents the wheel. We go back and we look at this information, and a lot of times there are many studies that exist, but it's finding the information that's challenging. But now with the internet and having contact with other local agencies, maybe existing public institutions, or private institutions that may have already done studies. Those are the kind of things that we should do an exhaustive search on in order to do that research and look at the information that can be gathered with that goal in mind or purpose in mind. And then utilizing all the tools that at your disposal. Many times it is in or actually is the community around you. And then involving others in your efforts, utilizing everyone's gifts, as Humberto was saying earlier, because there's a lot of skills and specialties that are within a room like this. That's where the community scientists and community science really comes into play, because when you have a collaborative effort, that's when you get more, that's where you really advance the cause. And then we have to learn to listen carefully. As scientists, we all have to listen carefully, allow the questions being asked or the information being presented to really sink in. Take down notes with questions, and then at the appropriate time, have them go back and address each question if we don't understand them. And if there's a need for additional clarification, that's the time to ask. And I think that's what we try to share. At least I try to share that, and because I've learned that over a long period of time, especially being a part of this group, participating in many of the community meetings that I've been in. And I try to set an example and say, hey, look, this is the presentation, and then going back and then looking at these particular items and questions. It's revisiting that information and questions that are asked. And then the more questions that arise, we need to have those answered. And then as scientists, many questions are going to be asked and considered. And then once all the questions have been asked and all the answers have been discussed, as well as all the information gathered, we begin to coming to a conclusion. But are we finished? Usually the answer is no. And so when do we know we're done? When the initial problems have been resolved, right? But until then, we continue digging, we finding answers, and then together as a community, we investigate, we explore questions and solutions, and we gauge others in the communities. Since there are many points of views to understand, and in the end, we come up with the solutions together. Engagement in the process, that's what makes us all community scientists. That's what community science is all about. Thank you.
That's excellent. Thank you. Gives me a lot of hope about the things that we can get done. Sometimes social problems that involve so many agencies seem so impossible to fix, but I really do think that we can do something that's actionable in this committee. So with that, are there any other member updates?
Before we go into public comment, Madam Chair, may we have introductions from Dr. Hassan, who came in? And I believe, Donald, did you get a chance to introduce yourself? Okay, Dr. Hassan.
Okay. I apologize for being late, and if you want to update on coronavirus or flu, that's why I'm late, is because of that. And I'm happy to do it if you want one. My name is Afif El Hassan. I'm a pediatrician. I'm a board member for the American Lung Association. I'm also a physician for Kaiser Permanente. I'm out of Orange County, and it's always a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so you're officially going to our Kaiser grant requests.
Send me an email. I'll be there. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll take care of it.
Thank you. We had a comment over there.
Oh, yes. According to Rule 1421, all the dry cleaners must use the non-POC motion by January 1st, 2021. But we still don't know how many dry cleaners are out there need to be replaced the machine. So if you can provide those list of the dry cleaners who need to be replaced the machine, maybe we can do some outreach program to help them out.
Okay, is that something that? Yes. Okay, we can distribute that. Any other member updates or questions?
I will give an update if it's okay. And I know I considered environmental justice, as was mentioned, some of the high pollution areas have obviously increased asthma frequency. And from my perspective, I consider any child who is asthmatic, or actually anyone who's subject to pollution, to have some form of functional immunocompromise, because your lungs are chronically inflamed, your sinuses. So there's an increased frequency or increased predisposition to worsening disease like pneumonia, sinus infection, that kind of thing. So it's incredibly important that flu vaccine, any child, anyone actually, needs to get it, but it becomes even more important if you live in an area with high pollution. That can certainly make things worse. You're more susceptible to issues, and you're more susceptible to the secondary infections. So in every community, if there's any chance or any forum to promote people go to get their vaccination, it's very important, especially this year. It's been a long flu season. We are hoping it's coming down, but the pattern of illness has actually been a little bit different than we normally see. Normally we see flu type A. This year it's been type B. And now I'm starting to see flu A. But does it mean it's peaking and it's going to go down, or does it mean flu A is going to kick in and we're going to have a whole new season, an extension of the season? So everyone needs to get their flu vaccine. And I don't know if the coronavirus is appropriate for this committee, but if anyone has questions about it, I'll still answer them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And we've got a comment here.
Yes, I stated my name, Donald Smith. I'm representing the city of Compton. I'm a local community activist. Donald Smith, city of Compton. I represent here. I'm a community activist. I am a block club president. And just to update on some of the issues that I've been addressing with the city council and the mayor are road conditions, and how I've related that here is particulates that get airborne through cars going down the street degradation, street sweeping events, and things like that. And right now, the city has announced that they have something like about a little over $5 million that they're going to address the degradation of the community streets in Compton. And just a comment that I just read in the paper yesterday about some of the activities in the state for federal fracking plans in different cities. I think that needs to be addressed. And I know that affects land, but I believe it also affects clean air management also. I mean, they're gonna do additional 725,500 acres in 11 counties in California. So I think we need to keep abreast of that also. And I'd like to thank you. I love the information and the activities of the committee, and I'd just like to thank the committee. And that's all I.
Thank you. All right, I don't see any. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, we all got, I guess, picked up copies of the LA Times article from June 2016. Was there a particular reason, or is it for a timely issue?
That was a part of my presentation. I'm sorry, I failed to mention it. But, so one of the articles that I'd come across was this LA Times article, specifically, in terms of the health hazard. It was very appropriate at the time, of course, when I was doing some of the research and stuff for the presentation. I had the Southeast LA community really, in mind and in my heart right at that particular moment. And it just kind of, it really, went to and spoke to community science and the call to be community scientists, just because it involved, this particular community, which is part of this new study, or at least just outside the new study, and how nearby communities, are affected. So this particular article spoke about the neighboring community rather than the actual community itself. And so that went to, so if you look at this article and read through it and think about the who, what, why, when, and where, and how, you'll really understand that, it's important to get it right, to get the study right, because a lot of times it's just the neighboring communities that are affected, and the root cause of the problem kind of, goes by the wayside, or can't be studied, or can't be addressed for whatever reasons, whether it be zoning, political reasons, or legal reasons. And that was the purpose of me including this article in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got another card here.
So I just want to let the committee know about a project I've been working on in collaboration with the University of Illinois at Chicago and the National Institutes of Health. So we are developing a bilingual app to do environmental hazard reporting with the community. We have a prototype almost in place, and we're going to be pilot testing it in the South Central community with some organizations there. And then we'll be able to, hopefully in about 6 months, be ready, and it'll be a free app available on Android or iPhones to use. And hopefully want to work and collaborate with AQMD, because then a lot of the air pollution complaints is going to be able to integrate into your complaint system as well. So we'll get a record on the USC servers, and then folks will have the option to also report it to AQMD or perhaps some of these other agencies. So that's on its way, and hopefully in about 6 months or so we'll have something ready to share.
Excellent. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. So if I can, is this possible to invite you to the AB 617 Southeast community meeting to present that there? Because they're going to be creating a lot of their community action plan. And so that would be a wonderful integration, especially if it ties into South Coast Air Quality Management District's reporting system.
Not the Boyle Heights one?
No,
one?
that's because we already have our camp,
Okay.
But they're still creating theirs because they're one of the new communities. Yeah. And so that would be fantastic to share in order to get more community involvement. And I think you can present it to the quarterly meetings that we'll be having as well.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. It's not ready for prime time yet, so I don't want to make promises, but wanted to share with you guys. But yeah, it will be coming out, and then I'll definitely be happy to share it.
Okay, we got Mary.
Thank you. Okay, so I was not as prepared as Rafael was. So I did not bring a copy of this, but I do want to read at least the first 3 paragraphs of this article, because I think it's extremely important, and it's been something that we've been bringing up over and over again. So it says, California Attorney General Javier Becerra and the California Air Resources Board have joined together and filed an amicus brief with the 4th District Court of Appeal challenging the Moreno Valley Community Services District for disregarding the California Environmental Quality Act in its analysis of the World Logistics Center warehouse project. Instead, according to Becerra, the city developers are seeking to improperly rely on Carb's statewide cap-and-trade climate program, which Becerra said does not impose any regulatory requirements on the World Logistics Center project as an excuse not to analyze and mitigate its climate change impacts. And here's the interesting one. The World Logistics Center is a 40 million square foot warehouse and logistics facility complex proposed by Highland Fairview to be located in Moreno Valley. The amount of GHG greenhouse gases projected to be released into the atmosphere in association with the facility every year will be more than 385,000 metric tons, or nearly 40 times the South Coast Air Quality Management District's CEQA threshold of significance for GHG emissions. So this is a really big deal out in the community, especially because the location where this particular facility is being developed, or it has already been looked at, borders with the 60 freeway. The 60 freeway in that particular corridor is only 2 lanes in both in one direction and 2 lanes in the other direction. So it cannot handle the truck traffic that is anticipated for that particular location. So there is an indication that there will be a lot of stalling and a lot of standing of the emissions that will just be generated by the trucks as they're waiting to move through the corridor. So it is a really big deal. The unfortunate reality here is that the local elected representatives already passed and approved of the logistics center because, as they indicated, they need jobs. What they are not taking into consideration is their need for jobs are putting our children at continued risk, because we already live in a really high area of smog, and this will just further make that a horrible situation, and we'll be back to the days where the children weren't allowed outside in order to go to recess because the air quality is so bad. So this is a really big deal, and I bring it up on a regular basis. But when I saw the article and it said that both the Attorney General's office and Carb had actually been successful at the amicus brief, I was really elated about it, and so I knew I had to bring it, especially for my colleagues. I know AQMD already knows everything that's going on, but for my colleagues, so that we know exactly where it's going. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. That's really important, and we'll track it, see where that goes. Okay, so I think we've handled other business, and is there any public comment that we have today? No?
I wonder, how they interface, and I don't know who this person was. I'd like to track down how he came, to the district here, and how this, might interface or at all with community science. Back to what I was saying before about the asthma, sickness, cancer, deaths, the cost to society, externalities of our system, of our fossil fuel industrial production system for the last 100 years. And the concept that if you broke it, you fix it. This going back 150 years ago, we knew that fossil fuels and the stuff was polluting the air and was causing climate change. The guy that ran the Nobel organization for 20 years, a guy named Savant Arrhenius, was the second winner in 1902 of the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, and then 1927 he ran that. And he is the ancestor. In the 1880s, they saw coal being burnt and the temperatures. They were picking the fuel for vehicles in society. Edison said we should be using solar. In the 1880s, he had windmills and stuff working, trying to do batteries for electric vehicles and stuff. We went with fossil fuels and Rockefeller and all this. These guys were no slight guys. This guy's, it turns out Thornburg's dad's first name is from Savant. You know, the Rain Man, autistic Savant. Okay. I don't know if there's any connection, but this is her family. And they said that when she was going depressed and all this when she was 8 years old and found out about the climate stuff, they couldn't understand. This is your heritage. This is your family. I don't know why it took their daughter getting postal or something to realize what happened to them and their family. They should have been doing this for the last 50 years. And this is very significant. We're doing the same thing now. Just pushing natural gas vehicles out of the ports, into the warehouses, the IE. It's garbage. We need solar, electric, batteries. Thermal has not been looked at, and hydrogen. Hydrogen, they're talking about just probably $40 million for hydrogen vehicles. They're required by law to have a quarter or a third that'd be solar. It has been on there for 10 books. Years they haven't done it.
Thank you, Harvey. Do you want to wrap up your thought?
There were 90 cases filed 4 or 5 years ago by governments suing the fossil fuel companies. This has to be followed up by the district, the state, by EPA to join that litigation, get that money, bring it back here, and this is for the conversion, a just, equitable solar conversion ASAP. And this entity, this committee, is a pivotal part to play in that, as does this district in this state. And this has to be coordinated with the UN and the rest of this country. We've got a $10 and a $16 trillion Green New Deal. We put in the Solar New Deal in the 16 plan. It is being purged and ignored. We got ran out of federal circuit appellate court below the Supreme Court in San Francisco 2 months ago, and not let to file a writ of mandate to make the district and the different to study what they're supposed to do under law, and a stay of proceedings until that is done.
Okay.
We got run out by the
Harvey, we have to close up.
And color of authority.
Thank you so much.
Being able to get our date order to file.
Okay. Thank you, Harvey, for your comments. Before we adjourn, I wanted to share my cards because our next meeting is until April 24th. So I'm going to share my business cards with you, and I'm going to give you my cell phone number. It's not on there. It's 310-467-7408, and staff can share it if you didn't grab that. 310-467-7408. And if you would like to meet individually before April, I'd love that so I can hear more about what your passion is, and I'm happy to travel to the different areas that you're at. So thank you so much for your time today, for your dedication to this effort, and I'll see you all in April. Thank you. Were there